So I come from a very unique position in that I not only own and operate outlets in Asia, in Thailand, and and across Asia, but I also provide F&B consulting, interior design, brand development, as well as digital marketing for the hospitality industry. And we do that all under one umbrella. So we have a lot of talent under one roof who can come together to help us envision concepts for ourselves as well as for our clients. And what I wanted to present to you today, because I've been hugely affected by COVID, many of my restaurants were shut. We just opened 2 of them a couple of days ago, and we have 1 opening up. So we have had a direct impact from COVID. And so I think that my perspective in terms of some of these trends are things that I'm implementing, are things that I've learned, and I think that I'd be happy to leverage some of these things that I've learned to my fellow restaurateurs, hotel operators, and independent hotels, anywhere in the world. This is more Asia-centric in terms of the trends, but I'm certainly sure that it could be applied elsewhere as well. So let me just jump in. My first one is really about hotels restructuring their F&B approach. So hotels over the last 5 years, hotel operators per se, have been restructuring their F&B organizations and approach, primarily due to increased operation from independent operators. Now that restructuring of their F&B organizations is going to have to be expedited, primarily because of constraints of loss of F&B revenue in their hotel outlets, especially from millennials and Gen Zs who continue to favor dining at independent restaurants, and also loss of revenues from leisure travelers as a lot of countries remain closed. So there's going to be, again, more pressure on hotels in terms of some of these trends that were already occurring pre-COVID. And the challenges that hotels have faced is really, I think it's really one of this bandwidth. Hotel operators, I spoke to a hotel operator of a very large organization. He had over 100 restaurants to open within a year. And, hotel restaurants or even independent restaurants require a lot of attention to detail when we're putting it together, whether it's interior design, lighting, brand development, uniforms, mixology, or whatever it is. And in order to give that type of attention to detail, I think hotel groups are going to need to increase the size of their F&B organizations. I think they also have a lot of higher cost structures because they fall under the envelope of the hotel. So there's a lot of hidden fees and costs that don't allow them to compete dollar for dollar against the independent restaurants. I think one of the solutions is for hotel operators perhaps invest in building independent F&B organization outside of their hotel envelopes, which can help to create independent-like brands, which they could then take those brands and put them into different hotels. That might be an opportunity to decrease the pressure on their F&B organization. So I think there's a lot of restructuring going to happen in terms of hotels and hotels operators. Back of house is cloud kitchens. As the hotels face constraints in terms of loss of revenues through loss of in-house as well as out-of-house customers, I think there's a huge opportunity to find and use back of house spaces and turn them into cloud kitchens. At Soho Hospitality, we've rolled out 3 cloud kitchens. We have 3 more cloud kitchens rolling out. I think hotels are especially positioned to be able to take advantage of this, primarily because they've got huge buildings with a lot of underutilized spaces. They generally have huge back of house spaces and refrigerators. They overinvest usually from our perspective in terms of, walk-in refrigerators and freezers. And they usually have very, very talented chefs who have a diverse range of skills and talent. So I think there's a huge opportunity for hotels to be able to use their back of house kitchens and underutilized space and turn them into cloud kitchens. Now, the caveat is I've got a bunch of cloud kitchens, but I don't really know if it's going to work when you only have 1 or 2, outlets per brand, one or 2 cloud kitchens per brand. I think you need an enormous amount of scale to make sure it works, because you're paying huge commissions to the third-party delivery providers and aggregators who are going to pick up and deliver your food. So the word is still out on how that model is going to work and whether it's going to work, but it's certainly an opportunity hotels can look at. Another one is looking at consumer behavior and evolutions. So millennials and Gen Zs, they're a huge, very influential traveling demographic. In fact, 60% of the Asian population by 2020 is supposed to be compromised of millennials and Gen Zs. And there's, millennials and Gen Zs was already very, very anxious about their future pre-COVID. They were anxious about climate change, right-wing movements. They were anxious about their spending power, and they were anxious about job security. And now COVID has come, and it's made them more and more anxious about their future. And so that what's happened is there's been a whole paradigm shift in that these types of consumers are really wanting to engage with brands that are genuine, brands that are real, brands that are going to make their lives better. There was a research done recently where millennials and Gen Zs were asked what they wanted, what did they want out of the brands that they're engaged with? And they said that they wanted to engage with brands that had a sense of purpose, that were gonna answer the question why, brands that were gonna make their lives better. They wanna see more behind the scenes content of what brands were doing, when they're not in front of their customers. They also wanted to see their brands being represented by real people as opposed to celebrities. So what that does is there's now a shift. We used to talk in hotels about the experience and how we had to have a great experience. And we used to emphasize the experience, and that's a given. Hotels need to have great experience, but the big brother of experience is authenticity. So whether it's in design or experience or the food you serve or the customers that you train, authenticity takes center stage. And that's one of the things we have to look at when we're creating new concepts. The death of fine dining, I'm gonna call it. Fine dining restaurants are taking a huge hit post-COVID, primarily because they already had, the best locations, so rents are extremely high. They had to get the best talent in terms of front of house, back of house. They've invested a significant amount of CapEx, and also their food and beverage costs are very high. There was a research done by McKinsey recently looking at post-COVID impact on dining in general, and fine dining, there was more than a 50% decrease in fine dining right now, post-COVID, and even looking at 12 months from now, they're not seeing much improvement in terms of fine dining. But when you look at, QSR, I'm in the pizza business. I've got a brand called Soho Pizza, which we saw increase in our sales post-COVID. And when we looked at that McKinsey study, the only food category that was showing, increase in yield and in market capture post-COVID 12 months from now was pizza. So fine dining is going to take a huge hit. In fact, Rene Redzepi of Noma, he if you don't know him, best restaurant in the world, he turned his restaurant Noma into a burger joint. He's selling burgers for $18.50, but he's selling just the basic cheeseburger and ice cream for his customers and their children. And that's a great example of a dynamic shift of a guy who used to probably serve, molecular, beautiful food, plated food, and now he's going and he's, basically disrupted his business. So I think fine dining, I don't mean it's going to go when I say the death of fine dining, but I think social smart dining, quick service, casual dining is going to be prevalent going forward. At-home experiences. So pre-COVID, there was a study done looking at at-home experiences and how much people were dining at home versus dining outside. And in the United States, 33% of consumers were dining home-cooked meals, as opposed to 67% eating food away from home pre-COVID. If you look at post-COVID, 55% were having home-cooked meals and 45%, dining away. Now that in itself, that gap, now once things get back to normal, those numbers that I'm talking about are not going to hold in terms of 55% having home cooked meals, but there is going to be a larger demographic of people opting to eat at home. And that's going to cost the industry about $50 billion in the US alone. I'm sorry, I was not able to capture any data of Asia-centric data, but I think that's an opportunity. We're seeing brands like Old Man from Singapore. They were starting to, send pre-made cocktails, delivery to their consumers. I started cooking at home. I hadn't cooked for 3 years, and I'm enjoying inviting people home and eating at home. So the whole element of dining at home, can hotels cater to home cooked meals? Can hotels send their chefs for home cooked meals? I think that's an opportunity as well that maybe hotels may be able to look at. One of the things, operation efficiency or die, one of the things hotel restaurants have been really, not good at is innovation. The hotel industry never innovated. Airbnb and OTAs came and killed them. Restaurants never innovated. And then we had, Grab and Food Panda that came to kill us. Now, the problem with that is we inherently, restaurants have been very lucky to be able to have a lot of customers coming in, create great amounts of profit and revenue, but never having to look at all the KPIs and look at benchmarking and look at all the different facets of their business to make them operationally efficient. We've been very fortunate that, we build it and they come and we show great, covers and revenues and bottom line. But did we actually look at the intricacies of our operations and to make sure that we were operating efficiently? I think today and going forward, we're going to see a lot of companies having to open the kimono and look into the various facets of their business to make sure that they're operationally efficient. Because when the customers aren't coming anymore, we have to make sure that whether it's in terms of staff utilization, food and beverage costs, energy costs, or any other operational aspect of our business, we're going to have to make sure that we're operating very, very efficiently. Especially hotels, they sometimes get to operate under the protection. They're hotel operators, and I think that whole ideology will change and will need to change as well in order for them to survive. Another thing that I think is going to change is that, Grab's business in Asia Pacific grew 900% pre-COVID as people just opted to stay home and eat as opposed to go out. So today, as far as I'm concerned, dining means staying at home, ordering in, finding the best restaurant, your favorite restaurants, and having them sending it out, sending the food out to your home. So the future of dining out is going to have an entertainment aspect in order for restaurants to survive. The whole notion of just going out to eat, that's not going to work anymore because people are comfortable eating at home. They're saving money at a time in which they need to save money. So you're going to have to give them a reason to go out. So I think that every restaurant that's going to be envisioned and concepted after this COVID stage is going to have an entertainment component to it, or they will not survive. F&B will have to become a technology-driven business. I think it's already happening. You're seeing a lot of innovation in terms of POS, in terms of back office operations, in terms of AI and robots that will come to change the way we run our businesses, which have been very, very inefficient. But I think there's going to be a lot of technology coming in, and I think we've had a lot of challenges within our space where we have a lot of fragmented data technologies that are not speaking to each other. So we're not getting the data that we need in order to offer a personalized service to our customers, but that's going to change. And even at Soho Hospitality, we're looking at implementing and creating our own technologies all the way from table management, reservation management, customer relationship management, as well as loyalty and all these various facets so that we can focus on the currency of our data, which will become key so that we can personalize our customer experiences. And lastly, I've got 2 more slides. Sorry that I'm rushing. Disruption in delivery is looming. I think the current third-party delivery models do not work. Food Panda and Grab charge me 30% of my top line in order to deliver food for me. The moment the food leaves my door, I have no control over how it gets to my consumer. And many times when it does get to my consumers, the consumer is unable to reach Food Panda and Grab in order to make a complaint because they've got terrible customer service departments and haven't invested any money, and my fellow restaurateurs will agree. And the 30% they charge us, once we factor that into our business models, is it really profitable for us? So the word on the street is still out there in terms of their business model. I don't think they're a friend. I think they're a foe. And I think some disruption is going to come in because the business model doesn't work. And most of all, remember one thing, they charge us 30%, but none of these delivery companies are making any money. I don't understand. There are massive amounts of consolidation going on in the markets, but none of them have turned a profit. So the business model doesn't work. I think there's disruption going to come in. I think that disruption is going to favor restaurants. And I think that the biggest mistake for these third-party delivery guys is that when COVID happened, they should have offered subsidies and discounts to their fellow restaurateurs, knowing that we were suffering, but they were too greedy to do that. And I think that's going to bite them in the bullet going forward. My last slide is that everybody's talking about post-COVID. My GM wants to do, like, you know, he wants people to be able to get into the elevators without using their hands. He told me I should spend 300,000 baht, you know, when we have no money right now at our hotel. And maybe I'm speaking in the context of Thailand because we haven't had it so bad here, but I think everyone is panicking. I think we're over-exaggerating what's going to happen post-COVID. I think that minus the hygiene issues that I think we need to maintain, we need to become more hygienic. I think nobody likes to wear a mask. Nobody wants to go to a restaurant with an acrylic, you know, sheet in between them and their wife when they're sleeping in the same bed. That whole setup doesn't impacts the restaurants in terms of the way we can operate, impacts our yield. I think that once this settled down, the new normal will be the old normal, primarily because as humans, we want to interact. We want to interact with the chef, the person serving us. We want to be with our friends. I've gone to meetings with my clients where I'm shaking hands now and there are no masks at the meeting. Maybe that's a Thailand-centric issue because we haven't had it hit so hard here. But my post-COVID 6 months, 12 months from now, vision and outlook is that everything's going to come back to normal. Thank you very much.